Fyrstur á mælendaskránni og fyrsti fyrirlesturinn Mark Thomson frá Zebra, eins og hann vildi láta kynna sig. Like you would like to introduce yourself, Mark Thomson from Zebra. Gjörðu þessu vel, Mark.
Now we've got the technical bit about getting the presentations up and running. Wonderful.
Hocus pocus.
Well, not only a good introduction with lots of comedy, clearly, but also a good technician. So you can come back. So I am going to put my timer on because I've got a very strict 25 minutes, and I've told Greta I will only take an hour. So there we go. He's looking very nervous at the back, having organised this for weeks and weeks and weeks, and been very strict on the instructions. So I'm going to ignore all of your instructions, by the way. So here we go. Isn't it great to be back in a room with physical people? I'm not staring at lots of faces on a screen and not knowing what they're doing or thinking, not even knowing if they've put trousers on that day. So it's quite nice to be back in a physical environment and not having to say, "I'm sorry, you're on mute, I can't hear you." So great to be back, and thank you, Edico, for setting up the event. So my name is Mark Thomson. I work for a company called Zebra or Zebra, depending upon where you're from. I spent some time working in America, so I have to call it Zebra now, even though all my UK colleagues call it Zebra. So I get a lot of Mickey taken out of that one. My role is head of retail strategy, which means I spend most weeks with retailers, listening to retailers, trying to understand what are the current challenges they're facing. And boy, it's been an interesting couple of years. And then seeing where is retail going? What's the future hold for retail? What's real and what is not real? Because there's a lot of hype out there. There's a lot of things happening in the press, especially around technology. So my job is to try and define what all of that means. So hopefully we'll get this. Oh, someone's taken that out. That's why that doesn't work, that piece of technology. Because there's only one USB. Let's try. Wouldn't be a presentation without some technical challenges. Well, exactly. There you go. Look, I can use technology. So, what are the big drivers of change for retail? There's quite a few of them up there. So obviously the pandemic, it did affect retail. A lot of countries, retailers were closed, what we call non-essential retailers. And by the way, I'm not going to try and teach you about what's happening immediately in Icelandic retail. You know that far better than me. What I'll try and cover is what's happening outside of Iceland, what might be coming in, what's happening with consumer behavior, etc. So the pandemic affected retail quite severely. I wouldn't say, however, it caused any changes by itself. What the pandemic did was speed up those changes. It acted as a catalyst for some of the changes that were already happening, namely the big shift online. And so everybody had to go online, especially in those countries where people were basically told, stay home, don't go anywhere else. So Amazon suddenly became everyone's best friend. So the pandemic speeded up change. Now for the technology industry, from a technology perspective, even though retailers were closed and many other businesses were closed, actually the revenues for technology companies went shooting up because actually technology spend was brought forward in order to become more agile, in order to solve some of the challenges that the pandemic caused. In the middle at the top there, we've got obviously sustainability. And that is now firmly at board level in almost all decision making. So how do we make things more sustainable? How do we reduce plastics? How do we reduce waste in general? That could be food waste, it could be clothing. How do we move away from one-wear clothing? So we're actually wearing things multiple times. And then when we finish with them, how do we recycle those? And that runs all the way down through to the technology we use in our stores. So sustainability, absolutely key. Cost of living is a huge challenge. OPEC, oil-producing nations, yesterday announced that they're cutting back on oil production, which has forced another increase in oil prices, which is driving the cost of goods up all the way around the world. So some significant impacts on the price of goods. People, we have all changed. We've changed over the years, and increasingly we are digital first. We're probably all sitting there with our phones. We've probably all looked at our phones several times this morning already, looked at the news, looked at our emails, even looked at shopping. So many retailers are starting to focus on digital-first engagement with consumers. And that makes us rethink about what's the purpose of the physical store. Now, the physical store still exists and should still exist and has a purpose. But should it be the first place we think about? Is that our focus as a retail business? Or actually, is it the customer the focus? And if the customer is focusing on digital first, then actually we create a digital engagement with that customer where the store is part of that engagement. And it sounds like semantics, but it's a very different way of thinking about customer engagement and how we design and use our stores and also the technology in those stores. Staff are becoming an increasing challenge. Around the world, and this is almost every single country, it's becoming harder and harder to find staff. It's harder and harder to pay staff because the pay rates have gone up. Tesco in the UK, as a good example, has given 3 pay rises this year. So far, they're at 8% increase in pay this year alone for their store staff. That's a huge increase on their bottom line, against their bottom line. So finding staff, retaining staff, and making existing staff more productive is absolutely key. And then obviously the other changes, the other big driver is technology itself. How do we understand what's happening with intelligence? How are we driving intelligence from our stores? Because if your customers are buying online, then you see which pages they've gone to, how long they spend on each pages, what route they take through to the products that they want to buy, what products they add to the basket, etc., etc. You get a lot of data from the online engagements. If a customer comes to your physical stores, what data do you get? Very little. Even if they buy something, half the time, if they're buying it without a loyalty card, you still don't have that information. So how do we make our stores more digital to understand the customer journeys better when those customer journeys are physical journeys? So we'll look at some of those things that are happening. Now, there's lots of hype, as I mentioned, in retail. The Metaverse is one of those areas of hype at the moment. That's not to say that it isn't part of the future, but it's certainly not going to transform retail in the next 2 or 3 years. I will talk later on about what McDonald's are doing in the Metaverse. But just bear the Metaverse in mind. Basically, it's when people are doing virtual gaming and they still have access to retail through that virtual gaming. Now, it's beyond me. I'm way too old for this sort of stuff. But the younger generations are finding this as a great way to get involved in retail. Other things happening as well. We're seeing TikTok made some announcements end of last week as well around the use of TikTok for live shopping. And in China and Japan, we're seeing a lot of live shopping events where people are essentially watching videos, but they're able to shop through that video. You effectively click on that video, and you see the products that are included in that video. So you can start to imagine, as that might become more mainstream, that I might be watching the Tour de France, and I click on the Tour de France screen, and now I see the top that the cyclists are wearing at that point in time, the helmets that they're wearing, and I can then click right through and buy through that. So suddenly, live stream TV becomes a retail store, a way of displaying products. Now, who controls that is another big challenge, and how we look at that. Expectations have changed. So expectations from companies like Amazon, Uber, Netflix, Apple, there's a lot more, and you'll have local ones as well. And the challenge for retailers is once these levels of expectations have changed, shoppers, consumers don't want to go back. They don't want to go back to the old ways. They want the new expectations. So, for example, in many countries with Uber, if I want to get a taxi, I don't have to go to a taxi rank. I don't have to call up a special number. I've got Uber as an app on my phone. I click on that, and it tells me exactly where that car is right now. It even tells me how long it's going to take me to get to my destination and what time they will drop me off. If I select it, I can select exactly my point where I am now, and it'll bring the car straight to me. I see a little map that shows me where that car is right now, and I see it driving towards me on the map. And then when I finish my journey, I can just get out of the car because my payment is all done through the app as well. So those levels of expectations, how do we make retail more like that? And it drives, so on the left-hand side here, we see some of the expectations that consumers now have of their retail journey. They want engagement. They expect to get information about the products. They want to know if it's available. They want to know what sizes you've got. They get frustrated, severely frustrated, if your staff in stores can't give them accurate information about what's in stock. And even worse, when your staff say to them, yeah, we should have 2 of those available, let me go and find them for you, and 5 minutes later come back and say, yeah, the system must be wrong. Customers don't like that, and they will shop increasingly online because they trust the information online much more than they do in store. So there's a real pressure there on inventory accuracy that's driving, but also the ability of staff to be able to share that information with consumers. Rapid delivery and returns. And we've seen a lot happening in that space. Tesco in the UK is one example. You can order some food in Tesco, and you can order it online, you can click the button, and if you're in London, within 10 minutes, that food will arrive. Your groceries will arrive in 10 minutes. Imagine the journey that has to go through. You've got to place the order. Someone's got to receive that order. They've got to go around the store picking your items. They've got to get it into a bag. They've got to get it onto the back of a scooter, and that scooter's got to get to your house, all in 10 minutes. It almost feels impossible, but it's happening, and it's happening at a faster rate. Social commerce, influenced retail, so influencers, their use in retail, and many stores are now starting to look at even having, you walk into the store and there are pictures of influencers. Influencers who are only famous because they are influencers. They've chosen to become influencers on YouTube, Instagram, etc., and TikTok. That is their claim to fame. But because they get so many followers, they suddenly become, again, another portal, another outlet for retail. So lots happening on the consumer demand side, and retailers are reacting with increased levels of automation, improving their omni-channel fulfillment, and looking to see whether or not do I fulfill from a store or do I fulfill from a fulfillment center or warehouse? What's the optimal? Where do I have the staff? Where do I have the confidence in the inventory, the stock that's in my stores or warehouses? Rapid deliveries to match the other side, collaborations. So retailers starting to work together to say that actually I don't need such a big store, so maybe you come, we work together. And we're seeing a lot of that. So Casino Group in France, which is a big supermarket chain, working with C&A, which is a fashion chain. So C&A now having shop-in-shop effectively in Casino Group stores. So lots happening in collaborations, sustainability, as I mentioned before, customer experiences. So Rituals, which is a health and beauty brand across Europe and across the world, in fact. So rather than just having a nice-looking store that feels good, has some nice music and a display of products, they actually, in their flagship stores, also have a spa. And that spa, of course, uses all of their products. So you now not only get to buy the products, you get to experience them. It's about finding ways to bring products to life. As I mentioned, the store as a physical location is not just about selling products. It's about experiencing the brand. So lots happening there. And the last piece there is becoming increasingly important, where retailers are looking for ways, not only at recruiting staff and retaining staff, but making sure those staff are as productive as they can be. Because actually the number of tasks we're asking staff to do in store has increased. Even though there's automation, even though there is self-checkout in many stores, the tasks for staff has increased, and we want to make sure that they do those as efficiently as possible. We want to make sure that the engagement with customers is as informed as possible. So we're seeing that retailers are working on programs to empower their staff using technology to do so. You will have seen that maybe that Walmart announced last year they're actually providing 750,000 mobile devices for their staff to use because they want every single member of staff to have access to a mobile device. Other retailers doing the same, like Waitrose in the UK, a supermarket in the UK. They used to have 10 devices per store for their staff to use when they were doing inventory management or pricing. Now they have 45 devices per store because they want every member of staff who's not on a checkout to have access to information to be able to serve customers better. So increasing productivity in that way. So as I mentioned, automation is certainly growing, and automation takes a lot of different forms. So it might be automation in the distribution center, fulfillment center. It could be fully automated, so the Witron type systems, or it could be partially automated using robots or cobots. And last year, we as Zebra made an acquisition of a cobot company because we absolutely see automation as part of retail's future. It could be robots in the aisle to look at the stock that's on shelves, to make sure the planogram is accurate, to see if there are any gaps on those shelves. Now, it could be robots, that could also be cameras through the store that could do exactly the same thing. So lots of different technologies, lots of different ways to achieve the same goal, which is better inventory visibility. But it could also tie to lockers, automated lockers, so that as a customer, I can now go in my own time to pick up my click and collect orders when I'm ready. I don't have to make an appointment. I don't have to get to a store and ask for a member of staff and they go, oh yeah, I'm busy at the moment, we'll be there in 5 minutes. Because that's not good use of staff's time and it's not good use of my time. So lockers, whether they are all one temperature, or in this example here, where you have chilled, frozen and ambient temperatures for the lockers. So the ability to automate those processes. And retail is kind of moving in almost two directions. And when I say retail, I'm talking about consumers in terms of our buying behavior as shoppers. We will go to the shops at some point where we are doing what I would call a transactional journey. I know what I want to get. I'm going to go to the store. I just want to be able to buy it and get out as quickly as possible. So maybe if I'm buying a sandwich and a drink at lunchtime, I don't need all the experience because that takes time. I don't even need somebody on the checkout. All I need is the ability to pick up my items and get out of that store as soon as possible. If I'm buying clothes, I might want more of an experience. So the example for Tommy Hilfiger there, where there are interactive machines, where they use RFID so that when I pick up an item, it tells me about that item on the screen next to it. So leveraging technology to support the different journeys that consumers have. This is the example of Tesco's with Gorillas, the 10-minute order. It's still hard to see how they do it, but they have a reduced range of stock, so they use 1,000 items only as part of that picking process. So it's a reduced assortment, but it's still a big challenge. And is it profitable? Well, actually, a lot of the rapid delivery companies have reduced their staff this year, cut back to try and make it more profitable for them. But the forecast is still that this will definitely grow. How do you pick? There's lots of different ways to do that, and there's booths all the way around here that can help you understand the different methodologies to pick. The technology itself is not so important as getting the process right, understanding who's picking, where they're picking from. Is it your staff? Is it from your stores? Is it from your fulfillment center? And then getting the right technology that makes that process quick and easy for the staff. So lots of different options there. And as I mentioned, the cobots in order to speed up that process. The way the cobots work is the picker in the warehouse is picking from the pick face. They pick to the baskets on the totes on the robot. And rather than the picker having to take a cart to the consolidation point, the cobot does all of that for them. So the picker just stays and keeps picking, because as soon as they've finished one robot full, the next robot is there, and that can then take the rest of the goods. So you keep that flow of picking happening, because humans are good at that dexterity, that picking action. So the humans are absolutely important in this process. But that time of taking that cart from where the pick face is to the consolidation point where things get wrapped and labeled is wasted time. So let a robot do that. So that's where the cobots fit in. We're also seeing, I guess, automation almost to its extreme, and I'm sure you've seen Amazon Go and all the stories around that, the just walkout technology. That's expanding rapidly as well, so we even have that down to the discounters like Aldi, who are trialing this in 2 countries, well, in fact 3 countries now. They've recently announced another one. So they're in the Netherlands, they're in the UK, and they're in Germany, trialing essentially just walkout technology, but through a different company. And there's several companies doing this now. So we're seeing a big expansion in this ability to walk into a store, tap your phone or your card to get into the store, just take products off the shelf, and actually then just walk out. You don't go through any checkout process at all. It's fully automated. It involves a heck of a lot of cameras. In a room this size, you'd have over 1,000 cameras in order to be able to monitor that. And in some of the techniques, the Amazon one, they also have shelf edge scales as well on the shelves to be able to monitor what's been taken off the shelves. So a lot of tech. Is it profitable? Probably not, but it gives you that data that you might be looking for. So that's one of the reasons retailers are doing it. We also saw over the last couple of years a massive expansion in, I guess, something that's very similar to that just walkout technology, the ability to pick up a scanner as you go into the store and scan the items that you want, put them straight into your bag, and then you just go to a checkout process and just do the payment piece. So you're not having to take those products out of your bag again at the end of the shopping process. You're not having to hand them to somebody else who then puts them over a scanner or anything. It's already done. They're already in your bags. So Scan As You Go is very, very popular across Europe. Sainsbury's used to have about 18% of their customers using this. The pandemic hit, and that rocketed up to over 35%. We have a customer in the Netherlands that has over 50% adoption rate. And the customers that use this type of scan-as-you-go methodology typically spend between 10 and 15% more than the rest of the customers. So it's a really good loyalty model, and it obviously gives you then data about how people are shopping. What are they buying? Are there areas of the store they've missed? There are even technologies around it now where you can locate them as they're in the store, so you can see what journey, what path they take around the store. So that's something that we've specialized in for a number of years. And you can take, I guess, the friction out of retail in a number of different ways as well, whether that's using RFID like Decathlon do at their checkout. So all of their items have RFID. They drop them into, you drop the items into essentially this bin on the left-hand side, and an RFID reader simply reads all of the tags on those products and tells you how much it is. No scanning at all. Similarly, top right is, again, image cameras looking at the products that have been put onto that space, and it tells you what products they are and just charges you for those products. So you could even think about a future in 10 years' time where actually we don't need a barcode anymore. We certainly don't need to scan barcodes at point of sale, because actually we'll just recognize the products as they get put onto the conveyor belt or put into the cart. So that's certainly happening. And talking about carts, this is something for the future again, but we are seeing expansion. In fact, there's a project in Denmark right now with one of these companies. This is what we call smart carts. So the ability, again, to have a cart with cameras attached to it and a screen, and then it just sees every product that you put into your bags. So it takes that scan as you go one stage further. So this is something we're monitoring very, very closely. And then I guess the last piece here is about once you've taken orders from customers, once they've gone this digital route, how do I get products to customers as quick as possible? Are they going to come to store to collect those products? Well, how do I hand over? What's the best way to make sure my staff are available, that they can hand over the products that customers have come to collect? Do I send my products to customers? Do I have a guy on an electric bike that does that? Do I send a drone through the air? Does that make sense? Or do I send a 6-wheeled drone like we've got top left that Amazon are using here? So Amazon is a really good proponent of looking at different methodologies to try and optimize the process. They won't necessarily pursue all of these. They experiment a lot, and then they will hone in on what works. So monitor these fairly closely. Sustainability is important as well. We are seeing a lot of changes. It could be impacted on in the store. It could be impacted in processes. But what's important really is to know what are customers prepared to pay for. Because if you send a survey out to customers and ask them what they want, yes, they're going to say they want your business to be sustainable. But if you then give them two products and say, well, this one's slightly more sustainable and this one's not, but this one's 20% more expensive. The real question there is what do they then, which one do they actually buy? So McKinsey did a good study in watching consumer behaviors and what will people actually pay for. So that's the study on the right-hand side, and it looks at some of those sustainability factors. By the way, I'm quite happy to make these slides available, so we'll share this deck with you after the session. Other companies, this is Chipotle, so the restaurant chain through America, and they're using RFID as a technology, but the outcome that they want to achieve is better traceability of their fresh produce as it comes through their supply chain. They don't want to have to scan barcodes. They don't want to have to open packaging. So the RFID almost gives them an automated way to monitor and track and trace. And from an experience point of view, Sonos makes speakers. Rather than having a big room full of speakers and I have to choose which ones I'll listen to and lots of people are listening at the same time, they've created these little listening booths. So again, it's about the experience, bringing products to life. That could be in a fitting room with a touch screen to be able to see what products you've got available. And in this particular one, which is in London and New York, by the way, actually the back of that wardrobe in the fitting room has doors on it. So if I want different products, I can select different products on the screen, to different sizes perhaps, and then within 2 minutes, they appear in the back of that wardrobe. So suddenly I'm getting served in the fitting room. The fitting room is a buying experience in itself. And I mentioned RFID bringing products to life. This is Nike's store in London, and they do this at a number of their stores, whereby I can take the shoes from the racks at the back, I can put them on these orange spots on this table, and the screen now on this table allows me to compare those two products. So it's finding a way to create a digital experience and engagement in a physical store. McDonald's, I mentioned the Metaverse, and it's just got an interesting take on it. So kids playing games, they're on their video games, they're each in their own homes, but they're chatting to each other, they're engaged with each other, but they're in their own homes. They can now go to a virtual McDonald's store within the game. They can order their McDonald's, so they've all gone in this virtual McDonald's store together, their avatars. They've ordered their McDonald's, and 30 minutes later, the real burger appears at their doors. So now they're sitting in their bedroom still, eating a burger, engaging with their friends, but they're still in their virtual world. So they'll never leave their rooms. And there's a bit of research here that we've done in terms of some true behavioral attributes of the millennials and Gen Z. And don't be thinking that millennials are this future generation, by the way. The older millennials are now in their 40s. These are your shoppers, these are your staff, and these are the sort of attributes that, of their behavior. They do make last-minute decisions, which is why they're moving away from shopping once a week with a big basket to 2 or 3 times a week, because they haven't got a clue what they're going to be doing in 2 or 3 days' time. And most of them can't cook either, so it's a bit of a generalization, but they do make last-minute decisions. They don't plan. They like to self-serve. They prefer to go to a computer self-service than a member of staff. So just beware of some of the attributes there. Now, all of this drives our vision, and I've got -2 minutes, so he's not sweating yet, is he? So we focus on 3 things from a business point of view. What is the customer experience that we can help you drive? How do we help you improve the operations, improve the productivity, improve the communication between staff? And then how do we optimize your inventory? I've talked about inventory and stock a lot, but it's very, very important because actually a lot of the customer experience is based around you having the right stock available in the right place at the right time. So those are our 3 main areas. We have, from a business point of view, this is the Zebra advert, but I know that Ivo will come on later this afternoon and do a session more around this. So we have obviously a hardware platform. We have visibility platforms, which is about gathering more data, like RFID. And then we have application or an orchestration platform, which is about, okay, so what does all that mean? This is about how do I put it in the hands of the staff so that they can make better decisions, whether they are a shop floor worker or a store manager. So we look at all those three areas. And we continue to invest in other companies as well. We have a venture capital business. We also have a mergers and acquisitions team. So we're constantly looking out for what's interesting in the marketplace and how do we add to our portfolio to be able to serve you better. So that's it from me. I hope it was useful, interesting, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Thank you.